It has been a busy summer for the city of San Diego. One big challenge making an impact on the homelessness crisis. A brand new ban on homeless encampments in public areas has led to many questions about shelters and enforcement of the new ordinance. So as you can see, San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria is joining us tonight for his monthly visit to answer some of your questions. Mayor, welcome.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. The unsafe camping ordinance, it seems like we talked about it for many months, and then finally about 10 days ago, last week Monday, it actually went into effect. Do you have a status update? Are police actually, are they giving people a grace period, a little warning period as we get used to this new ban?
Well, I would say it's going well. What do I mean by that? Well, in the 10 days, as you mentioned, of enforcement to date, we have had no custodial arrests under the unsafe camping ordinance because we're leading with progressive enforcement model. Multiple touches, education of the general public before we can do an arrest or even threaten that. What we're seeing are folks are dispersing. Many of them are accepting shelter, often for the first time, often noting that the threat of enforcement is causing them to accept shelter. And the good news is, Marcella, is that we're seeing them go to our safe sleeping site and other shelter locations, which allows us to give them wraparound services that will hopefully end their homelessness.
Critics were concerned that this would criminalize being homeless, and I know that you were trying to say that something needs to be done. We can't allow people to sleep on our streets, and so 10 days in, it does appear that people are accepting some of those resources?
Some are. Others are moving along. This is only 10 days in. We have more work that must be done, but I'm encouraged by what we've seen to date. I have a lot of respect for our San Diego police officers, as well as our entire homelessness ecosystem, who have spent the month after the council vote, but before enforcement, going out and educating and making sure that unsheltered individuals know what the rules are now. And I think that's what the value of this is, beyond the most important thing, which is the health and safety on our city streets. But it's also setting expectations for everyone in our community about what is acceptable in the public rights of way.
Talk about those safe sleeping sites. How are those going?
Well, we have our first one open. It's been open for a little over a month. Our provider is a nonprofit called Dreams for Change. They're doing an extraordinary job. In fact, I believe one of your reporters was able to take a tour of it just yesterday. Marcella, what we see are over 100 individuals that are there right now today. They are getting connected to services, and we still have some capacity on that site. So we continue to invite people to accept shelter and services. I heard an anecdote, but I'm looking for more details. We already have our first person from the safe sleeping site graduate into permanent housing. Really? And so this is exactly what's intended. Leaving them on the sidewalk is a recipe for death. Getting them into care, getting them triaged, and then helping them move on to permanent housing, that is what we want to do, and they benefit because they're no longer unsheltered, and the community benefits because we no longer have the unhealthy and unsafe encampments in front of homes and businesses. I
know it is a delicate balance, and the homelessness crisis has expanded since the pandemic. On Monday, a couple days ago, we reported that the mayors, 12 mayors, including yourself, signed a pledge because there has been a lot of finger pointing over the past few years. People who are homeless kind of move from city to city. Different cities have different resources, different shelter availabilities. What was the pledge that you all signed on Monday to kind of work together?
Well, it's a non-binding pledge, but it's a step in the right direction. What it says is that we, the 12 mayors that were there, reminder, there are 18 cities in the county of San Diego, so it wasn't everybody. But the 12 mayors who were there said that we all acknowledge this is our #1 problem in our region, and that we'll work collectively to address it. You know, it's not finger pointing when you point out that the city of San Diego has 57% of our region's homelessness, but 85% of our shelter beds. We are, other cities are relying on the taxpayers of the city of San Diego to solve their homelessness problem. And it's important to me that every city in this county does its fair share. Marcella, there are communities that have seen skyrocketing rates of homelessness, but those same cities still have 0 shelter beds, even to this day. Those cities need to be acknowledged and called out because they have the same resources I have to solve this problem. And if they don't, all they're doing is sweeping them into San Diego, and we just can't continue to do that. We all have a role to play in solving this crisis.
And I know, I think there are different approaches in solving homelessness, but you know, some people feel strongly that there needs to be a big emphasis put on mental health services and trying to combat drug addiction, resources. But is that part of the big picture plan for San Diego?
Absolutely. I think your viewers should be proud of the fact that the city of San Diego, and to a great extent our county of San Diego, have been leaders statewide in the push for behavioral health reform for both mental illness and substance use disorder. You covered extensively the Care Court, which was passed by the state of California, signed into law by Governor Newsom. It goes into effect in San Diego County this October. I have been up to Sacramento multiple times this year articulating on behalf of changes to our conservatorship laws so that we can care for our most vulnerable, who currently we cannot actually care for because they're not sick enough. Well, we don't want them to get into a crisis. We want to serve them sooner than that. I believe that bill will become law this year, and it'll be due in part to the fact that San Diego has been outspoken in this particular issue. We are the second largest city in the state of California, so when we speak, Sacramento listens, and whether it's care court or the potential for conservatorship reform, we're not just only focused on street homelessness, we're focused on the underlying causes, addiction, mental illness, and of course, housing production.
We only have about 30 seconds left, so let's move to housing production. You have a Housing Action Plan 2.0. I know you were hoping to have Senate Bill 10 be supported by the commission, but that was to replace single-family homes with units up to 10 near major transport, near public transportation areas. How do you move forward without that component?
Well, that package has 10 other reforms that were unanimously endorsed and advanced, and those will make a big difference. They'll do everything from student housing to taking old retail centers and turning them into housing, taking public property and turning it into housing, and there's a number of other things that are really good and powerful tools that will help. SB 10 was one component of that. I think SB 10 would be helpful to provide the kind of entry-level housing that so many of us need, those townhomes, those row homes, those things that let folks to get a foot in the door when it comes to home ownership. Obviously that didn't advance, but these other 10 reforms are substantial and they will make a difference in our housing crisis.
All right, I imagine this will be a conversation that we'll continue to have, and thank you for that very latest update on the unsafe camping ordinance. It seems like great news so far in the first 10 days. Thanks, Mayor.
So far, we'll keep at it.
Appreciate it. Carla?